The cold, unforgiving expanse of space stretched infinitely before Captain Isaac Turner. A small window into the void, the viewport of the vigilant star offered only the dim lights of distant stars, flickering in the cold abyss. But Isaac wasn't looking at the stars. He wasn't even thinking about the usual sights. Today was different. Today, Earth's place in the galaxy was being decided in real time. The Vraxii Empire, the most feared power in the galaxy, was on the move. And they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated humanity. Captain, Vraxii fleet is on approach, Carolyn, the ship's tactical officer, reported. Her tone was calm but sharp, the tension already creeping into her voice. They're coming in fast, Captain. They think we're easy prey. Isaac turned from the viewport, his gaze steady and calculating. Kara's face mirrored his thoughts. Humans had always been seen as the underdogs in this galaxy, their technology inferior to the older, more established empires. For years, Earth had been dismissed, mocked by the likes of the Vraxii, who had referred to humanity's defenses as primitive. Are our shields up to full power? Isaac asked, his voice firm. Shields at 100%, Captain, Kara replied quickly, her fingers dancing over the console. Good, Isaac said, his jaw tightening. Don't give them the satisfaction of thinking we're an easy target. Initiate countermeasures as soon as they get within range. Let's show them they're wrong. Isaac moved to the command chair and slid into it, his body relaxing just slightly as he prepared for what was coming. This wasn't the first battle he had faced, but it was the first time Earth was fighting with everything it had. The Vigilant Star, despite its relatively small size compared to the monstrous Vraxii warships, had a potent weapon, adaptability. It wasn't the raw firepower of the ship that mattered, it was the crew's ability to think on their feet, to adapt to every change in the battlefield. And it was humanity's greatest weapon. The Vraxii were about to learn just how powerful that weapon was. The first strike came unexpectedly, a massive blast from a Vraxii warship that rocked the Vigilant Star to its core. Isaac's hands gripped the arms of his chair as the ship trembled under the force. The lights flickered briefly, and the crew quickly went into action. The ship's hull absorbed the impact, but the vibrations rattled Isaac's confidence for only a moment. Damage report, Isaac barked. Shields holding at 90%, Captain. We've sustained some damage to the starboard side, Kara replied, eyes darting across her console. Isaac took a deep breath. Keep them steady. Don't let them get a second hit like that. He could hear the urgency in Kara's voice as she worked with the engineering crew to reroute power. The Vraxii wouldn't wait. The next strike could be their last. Isaac turned to the comms officer, Lieutenant Andrew Klein, and gave the order he knew would turn the tide. Get our drones ready. It's time to fight back. The Vigilant Star had always been equipped with a variety of defensive technologies, some more experimental than others, but it wasn't the ship's firepower that would win this fight. It was the sheer will of its crew. Isaac trusted his crew more than any technology. The drones, small but fast, would provide the flexibility they needed to outmaneuver the Vraxii's brute strength. If the Vraxii thought they could simply overpower humanity's defenses, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. Drones are in position, Carolyn announced, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. Isaac nodded sharply. Fire! The drones shot out from the Vigilant Star, their small, sleek bodies darting through the void, weaving in and out of the Vraxii ship's line of fire. The Vraxii fleet, with all their advanced weaponry, was now forced to contend with these small, nimble targets. Focus fire on the lead Vraxii ship, Isaac commanded. The drones swarmed the lead ship, distracting its gunners and forcing it into a defensive position. It was a simple tactic, nothing the Vraxii wouldn't have expected from any other species. But that was where humanity's strength lay. It wasn't in what the Vraxii could predict, it was in what they could not. The Vraxii fleet began to react with increasing frustration. Their energy blasts missed, their ships fumbling to regain formation. Isaac saw it, the first crack in their confidence. The human drones were doing more than just buying time. They were forcing the Vraxii to think twice, to question their superiority. For the first time in centuries, the mighty Vraxii were thrown off course. Phase 2, initiate gravity manipulation, Isaac called out. The ship's gravity wells fired, shifting the ship's course dramatically. In the blink of an eye, the Vigilant Star was no longer where the Vraxii expected it to be. The Vigilant Star danced across the battlefield, its unpredictable movements throwing off the enemy's targeting systems. Isaac's eyes narrowed as he watched the Vraxii fleet struggle to realign their shots. Shields are holding, Kara confirmed. Isaac leaned back in his chair, a sharp grin forming. They've underestimated us, Kara. Now let's show them just how wrong they are. The Vraxii fleet was beginning to falter. Isaac's maneuvers were working. He could see it in the way the enemy ships were beginning to scatter. The Vigilant Star was too unpredictable for their precision strikes. The drones were harrying the enemy, keeping them off balance. The tide was turning. Phase 3, prepare the Genesis cannon, Isaac ordered. The Genesis cannon was the ship's most powerful weapon, capable of delivering a blast that could devastate entire fleets. It was humanity's secret weapon, one that had been kept hidden until now. Isaac had always known the Vraxii would underestimate them, and now they were about to see just how deadly humanity could be. Genesis cannon charging, Kara said. Her voice was filled with anticipation, but Isaac didn't speak. He didn't need to. The time for words was over. The cannon charged, humming with the power of Earth's ingenuity. In the final moments, Isaac locked his gaze onto the Vraxii flagship. Fire! The Genesis cannon erupted with blinding light, sending a surge of energy tearing through space. The Vraxii flagship never stood a chance. The blast ripped through its shields, shattering them, and tore through its hull with devastating force. The flagship was obliterated in seconds, its massive frame disintegrating under the power of humanity's most lethal weapon. The Vraxii fleet, now leaderless and shattered, began to retreat. Isaac stood, eyes locked on the screen as the last of the enemy ships fled into the darkness of space. He turned to his crew, his voice steady, though a flicker of triumph was impossible to hide. Well, that's one way to say hello to the galaxy. Isaac turned his attention back to the viewport. The Vraxii fleet had retreated, but the battle wasn't over. This was only the beginning. For once, humanity had fought on its own terms, and the galaxy had seen firsthand what they were capable of. We've just sent a message to the galaxy crew, Isaac said, his voice clear. Never underestimate humanity. Never again. As the Vigilant Star drifted away from the wreckage of the Vraxii fleet, Isaac knew they had proven something that no one had expected. Humanity wasn't just here to survive. They were here to dominate. The aftershocks of the battle still rippled through Isaac's body. His hands still gripped the armrests of the command chair, but the trembling of the ship had subsided. The Vraxii fleet, battered and retreating, was far from their mind for the moment. The crew was still processing the scope of what had just happened. Captain Isaac Turner allowed himself a brief, hard exhale. The energy from the battle had been unlike anything he'd ever felt. Victory had come swiftly, but Isaac knew better than anyone that it would not be the last time they'd face the Vraxii. He turned to his crew, who had all begun their post-battle routines. But there was no mistaking the tension in the air. A quiet satisfaction was there, yes, but so too was an undercurrent of something darker, something much larger. Status report, Isaac said, his voice still steady, but his mind running through the potential consequences of what they had just done. What's the damage, Lieutenant? Carolyn, his tactical officer, turned from her console and reported. The ship's holding steady. Shields are at 87%. Minimal damage to the aft sections. We'll need to reroute power to starboard to compensate, but we're in good shape, Captain. Isaac nodded. Good. But we both know this is just the beginning. Not even close, Kara replied, her eyes sharp. You've stirred up something. The Vraxii aren't just going to lick their wounds and retreat. They're coming back. And when they do, they won't make the same mistake twice. Isaac's gaze flicked to the view screen. The stars seemed to flicker coldly, as if to remind him of the vast emptiness between them and their enemies. The Vraxii were ruthless, and they didn't forget their humiliation easily. Isaac had known from the start that this fight would be a long one, but now, the reality of it hit him in a way that the battle itself hadn't. "Captain!" Lieutenant Andrew Klein, the comms officer, called out. "Incoming transmission from the Galactic Council. They're aware of what's happened." Isaac straightened. "Put it through." The holographic screen flickered, and the image of an older human officer appeared before him, Admiral Catherine Hale, a figure Isaac had come to both respect and fear over the years. Her eyes were sharp, her expression unreadable as always. "Captain Turner," she began, her tone formal but with a trace of something softer underneath. "I trust the battle went according to plan?" Isaac didn't miss the edge in her voice. The Council had been watching this conflict closely, too closely. Earth was no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting to prove themselves on a galactic scale. The Vraxii had been mocking them for years, and now Earth had sent a shockwave across the galaxy. The question was, what would that mean for Earth's future? "Admiral Hale," Isaac replied, his voice steady, but a hint of tension crept in. "The Vigilant Star and its crew were successful. The Vraxii flagship is down, and their fleet has retreated for now." "And the message?" Hale asked, her eyes narrowing. Isaac took a moment before responding. "Message received loud and clear. Humanity is not a threat to be dismissed, Admiral." Hale didn't smile. "Not a threat, Captain. A force." Isaac nodded. "A force that can adapt. That can fight when necessary. We've just proven that." Hale's image shifted slightly, and she leaned forward in her chair, her expression darkening. "The Vraxii may have retreated, Captain. But mark my words, they will come back. And when they do, Earth will be in their sights. This victory, it's not the end. It's just the beginning. The galaxy is watching." Isaac's jaw tightened, but he stood firm. "We're ready for whatever they throw at us, Admiral. Earth is ready." "Good," Hale replied, her voice cool, professional. "Because what you've done today is just one battle. The war? That's something else entirely. Don't get complacent, Captain." Isaac nodded and the transmission ended. He stood still for a moment, his eyes locked on the empty void of space. His heart still pounded with the echoes of the battle they had just won. But Hale's words echoed louder in his mind. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. "Get ready, people," Isaac said, turning to face his crew. His voice was steady, but underneath it was a current of determination. "The Vraxii might have made a misstep today, but they're not finished. They'll be back, and next time, they'll be smarter. But we've learned too. And that means we won't make the same mistakes." "Phase 1 was a success," Carolyn said, her fingers tapping away at her console, coordinating the repair efforts and preparing for the next round of battle. "I'm rerouting power to the secondary shields, and we're good to go. As long as we keep our speed and maneuverability, we should be able to counter any Vraxii tactics." Isaac nodded. "Good. We fight smart, we fight hard. But above all, we fight as one." As the crew continued its work, Isaac moved to the command deck, staring out into the stars. He could feel the weight of what had just happened, and his mind raced with strategies, countermeasures, and contingency plans. He knew what the Vraxii had underestimated. Humans didn't just survive. They adapted. They learned. And that was a lesson the galaxy was about to learn the hard way. The crew was ready. They had proven it. And Isaac was more than ready for the next fight, because he knew this: humanity wasn't going down without a fight. And Earth was far stronger than the galaxy could ever imagine. In the midst of it all, as the crew worked tirelessly, Isaac allowed himself a brief moment to think. He'd proven Earth's worth, but in doing so, he had stirred something in the Vraxii, a wrath that would only grow with time. This was far from over. The Vraxii had made their first mistake. Now, humanity would make sure they didn't get another chance. Immediate aftermath. The Vigilant Star was now at full alert, the crew still reeling from the effects of their victory. Isaac didn't show it, But he knew the hardest part was still to come. The Vraxii had tasted defeat, and they wouldn't rest until they had their revenge. Isaac's resolve was clear. Earth wasn't going to be a punching bag for the galaxy anymore. They would stand tall, and if the Vraxii wanted a war, they would get one. And this time, humanity would have the last word. #### immediate hook for Chapter 2 *. The battle may have been won, but the real war was just beginning. As the Vraxii retreated into the dark corners of space, their fury smoldered, ready to ignite again. Captain Isaac Turner knew that Earth's victory had been hard-earned, but it had also sent a clear message. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for too long. The Vigilant Star was ready for whatever the Vraxii, or anyone else, threw at them. But the question was, could they keep up the fight? The tension in the Vigilant Star's command deck was palpable. Isaac Turner stood at the helm, staring out into the vastness of space, his mind racing. The Vraxii had retreated for now, licking their wounds after their unexpected defeat, but Isaac knew it was far from over. The Vraxii were calculating, ruthless, and they would come back with a vengeance. It was just a matter of when. Isaac turned from the viewport and paced across the room, his boots clicking against the metallic floor. The Vigilant Star's crew had done their part, fighting back with unparalleled resilience and ingenuity, but now came the most critical part of their mission. To prove that humanity was not a fluke, not an afterthought, but a legitimate and unyielding force in this galaxy. Isaac's fingers itched to take the fight back to the Vraxii, to show them that Earth would never back down. He reached the tactical station, where Carolyn was busy coordinating efforts with the rest of the crew. She looked up at him as he approached, her face serious but resolute. "Captain, we've completed the simulations. If the Vraxii return with the full force they're capable of, we'll be outnumbered 2-1, Kara reported, her voice steady despite the weight of the situation. But that's not the real problem. Isaac raised an eyebrow. Then what is? Kara hesitated before responding. The real problem is their superior technology. We can't match them shot for shot. The Vigilant Star can outmaneuver them, but we need something more than tactics and drones. We need something decisive. Isaac considered this, his thoughts running through the options. The Vraxii might have advanced technology, but humanity had one key advantage: innovation. They adapted when others couldn't. They thought differently. That was the true strength of humanity. It wasn't in sheer numbers or advanced weapons, it was in their refusal to give up, to find a way when no way seemed possible. We've been working on the new weapon, right? Isaac asked. Yes, sir. The Genesis cannon is ready for activation, but we've only tested it in controlled conditions. It's a risk, Kara replied. Isaac's eyes hardened with determination. Activate it. The Genesis cannon was humanity's greatest secret. Developed in the early stages of Earth's space military buildup, it was a hybrid weapon that used a combination of gravitational manipulation and concentrated energy blasts. If it worked, it would deliver a strike powerful enough to tear through the Vraxii fleet. But if it failed, if it malfunctioned, the ship would be rendered vulnerable in a split second. There was no room for error. All systems are green, Captain, Kara reported after a tense moment of silence. The Genesis cannon is charged and ready. Isaac stood at the helm, watching as the countdown clock ticked down. Let's show them what happens when you underestimate Earth. He turned toward the crew. Prepare for Phase 3. We fight smart, and we hit hard. This is it. The Vraxii won't get a second chance. The Vigilant Star slowly maneuvered into position, facing the incoming Vraxii fleet. Isaac's heart pounded in his chest as he watched the fleet approach, their warships gleaming menacingly against the backdrop of stars. The Vraxii had learned the first time, but this time, Isaac was prepared to hit them with everything humanity had. Target the Vraxii flagship, Isaac commanded, his voice unwavering. Fire at will. The Genesis cannon powered up with a low hum, the energy beginning to build. The tension on the bridge was electric, every crew member focused on their station, their eyes on the weapon that would determine the outcome of this fight. Isaac could feel the weight of the moment, but he didn't flinch. They had fought too hard to stop now. Carolyn's voice broke through the silence. "Cannon is locked on target, Captain. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The Genesis cannon unleashed its devastating force in a single, blinding flash of light. The energy wave tore through space, its power rippling outward as it struck the Vraxii flagship directly. The blast was so intense that it briefly blinded the sensors on the Vigilant Star. But Isaac didn't need the sensors. He knew what had happened. The Vraxii flagship, the heart of their fleet, had been obliterated. The explosion that followed was catastrophic. The flagship, once a symbol of the Vraxii's superiority, shattered into pieces, scattering debris across the battlefield. The shockwave sent ripples through the Vraxii fleet, disorienting their ships and throwing their formations into chaos. Isaac's voice rang through the chaos. "Now! Take them down!" The Vraxii fleet, now leaderless and reeling from the destruction of their flagship, attempted to regroup. But it was too late. The drones, the Vigilant Star's primary defense system, began their strike. Human ingenuity at its finest, the drones attacked in swarming patterns, exploiting the weaknesses the Vraxii had left open in their panic. The Vraxii ships, once terrifying in their size and strength, were now vulnerable and exposed. The humans had turned their greatest advantage, adaptability, into their most formidable weapon. The Vraxii fleet began to fall apart. Ship after ship was taken down, their energy systems short-circuiting under the relentless onslaught. Isaac watched as the remaining Vraxii ships turned tail and fled, leaving only a handful of survivors limping away from the wreckage. Isaac stood tall, his eyes scanning the battlefield. The Vigilant Star had proven itself, and humanity had proven something even more important, something that the galaxy could no longer ignore. The Vraxii had underestimated Earth once, and it had cost them their flagship. Now, the message was clear. Humanity wasn't just a player in this galaxy. They were a force to be reckoned with. Isaac exhaled deeply, his heart slowing as the adrenaline from the battle began to fade. He turned to his crew, who were still catching their breath from the intensity of the fight. But the moment was fleeting. The war wasn't over. This was just one victory, but it had proven what Isaac had known all along: humans would never back down. "Status report," Isaac said, his voice calm, though his mind was already racing to the next battle. Carolyn turned to him, her face lit by the glow of the console. "We've won, Captain. The Vraxii are retreating, and their fleet is in shambles. We've done it." Isaac nodded, his gaze turning to the stars. "It's not over. They'll come back. But we've sent a message. And this time, the galaxy will listen. ### immediate aftermath. As the Vigilant Star glided through the aftermath of the battle, Isaac couldn't shake the feeling that something larger was unfolding. The Vraxii had been humbled, but Isaac knew their pride would drive them to strike again. Earth had sent a message to the galaxy, one that no one would ever forget: humanity was not to be underestimated. And for the first time in history, Earth had shown the galaxy that they could not just survive, they could fight and win. Now they had to prepare for what was coming next. The Vigilant Star drifted quietly through the silence of space, a lone sentinel in the vastness of the galaxy. The remnants of the Vraxii fleet had scattered, their leaderless ships retreating back into the dark corners of the galaxy. But Isaac Turner knew better than to celebrate too soon. The Vraxii Empire wasn't a foe to be taken lightly, and they would return. The question wasn't if they would return, but when. Isaac stood on the bridge, staring out into the endless void. The stars twinkled silently, a reminder of how far humanity had come, and how far they still had to go. Earth had made its mark. The Vraxii had tasted defeat. But humanity had only won one battle, not the war. And the Vraxii were relentless. "Captain?" Carolyn's voice broke through his thoughts. "We've received a transmission from the Galactic Council. They want a debrief." Isaac nodded, still staring out the viewport. "Put it through." The transmission came through, and once again, Admiral Catherine Hale's familiar face appeared on the screen. This time, Her expression was more serious than ever. Captain Turner, I'm sure you're aware of what's coming next. Isaac's lips tightened. He wasn't looking for pleasantries. Yes, Admiral. I'm already preparing for the next assault. Hale's eyes flickered. I want you to understand something very clearly, Captain. The Vraxii may have retreated now, but that doesn't mean they're gone. You've sent a message, yes. But in their culture, this defeat won't be forgotten. They'll come back, and they'll come back with everything they have. Isaac stood straighter, his resolve firm. Then we'll be ready. Humanity doesn't back down. Hale's expression softened, but only slightly. Good. Because this isn't just about Earth anymore. It's about the entire galaxy. The Vraxii will unite their forces to eliminate you. And if they can't take you down, they'll do everything they can to undermine the galactic peace. Isaac didn't flinch. We'll hold our ground. We're not afraid to fight. Just remember, Captain. Hale's voice became more serious. Victory doesn't come without a cost. There's more at stake here than you realize. The galaxy is watching. Isaac nodded, his gaze steady. We're ready. The transmission ended, leaving Isaac standing alone once again, his mind racing through the possibilities. The Vraxii would regroup. They would bring more ships, more firepower, and more fury. The battle to come would be even fiercer than the first. But Isaac had no intention of giving up. Days passed as the crew of the Vigilant Star prepared for what was to come. Carolyn and the rest of the tactical team worked tirelessly, analyzing the Vraxii fleet's movements and predicting their next steps. Isaac knew they couldn't afford to wait. If they did, the Vraxii would be back in force before humanity even realized what hit them. The Vigilant Star began its patrols again, moving through the empty void of space, staying ever vigilant, waiting for the inevitable strike. Isaac's crew worked around the clock, readying the ship for another round of battle. The Genesis cannon was recalibrated, the drones optimized, and the crew trained to fight smarter, faster, and harder. Isaac knew they had to be prepared for anything. And then it came. The Vraxii were back. Captain, incoming! Vraxii fleet has just jumped out of hyperspace. Carolyn called out, her voice cutting through the silence on the bridge. Isaac's heart raced, but his expression remained calm. The time for hesitation had passed. Humanity had already proven they were a force to be reckoned with. Now, it was time to back that up with action. Plot the course, Kara. Let's meet them head-on. Isaac commanded, his voice cold with determination. The crew scrambled to their positions, the ship's systems coming alive as the Vigilant Star prepared for battle. The Vraxii ships were massive, a swarm of imposing vessels moving towards them. This time, Isaac knew, they would not just aim to defeat humanity, they would aim to erase them. The battle began with a deafening roar, the Vraxii opening fire from all sides. Their ships were larger, more heavily armed, but humanity had one thing they didn't, the will to survive. The Vigilant Star weaved through the incoming fire, its gravity wells shifting the ship's position and throwing off the Vraxii's targeting systems. The drones swarmed the enemy fleet, attacking with precision and speed, pulling fire away from the main ship. Isaac watched the battle unfold, his heart pounding in his chest. This time, the Vraxii weren't taking it easy. Their weapons fired relentlessly, and their ships worked in unison to surround and overpower the Vigilant Star. But humanity's adaptability was its greatest strength. Phase 2, activate the Genesis cannon! Isaac barked. The Genesis cannon charged once more, a massive burst of energy building within the ship. As the Vraxii moved in for a crushing blow, Isaac gave the order. Fire! The Genesis cannon lit up the battlefield, unleashing a powerful burst of energy that tore through the Vraxii ships in its path. The shockwave of the blast sent multiple Vraxii vessels spiraling into chaos, their shields crumbling under the power of Earth's weapon. Isaac's pulse quickened as he saw the devastation unfold. The Vraxii were faltering, falling apart under the relentless precision and power of humanity's response. But even as the Vraxii fleet began to break apart, Isaac knew this wasn't the end. There was one more strike they had to make. The Vraxii would not give up that easily. But for now, humanity had shown them something that would not be easily forgotten. In the aftermath of the battle, as the last of the Vraxii ships retreated into the void, Isaac allowed himself a moment of relief. His crew was battered but unbroken. The Vigilant Star had survived. Earth had survived. The Genesis cannon had proven humanity's worth. They had sent a message to the galaxy. Earth was no longer the underdog. They were a force to be reckoned with. Isaac stood tall, his eyes locked on the stars once again. The battle was over, for now. But the war had just begun. The galaxy had seen what humanity was capable of, and Isaac knew that Earth's place in the stars was no longer up for debate. They would fight. They would survive. And they would never back down. ### immediate aftermath. The Vigilant Star limped away from the wreckage of the Vraxii fleet, victorious but knowing the galaxy would never be the same. Isaac's mind was already turning to the future. The Vraxii would return, no doubt about it. But next time, humanity would be even more prepared. Isaac had shown the galaxy that humanity's strength lay in its ability to adapt, to innovate, and to fight for its survival. And the galaxy would never forget it.